In Himmler's opinion, Speer was dangerous. He would have to disappear. Was there a bitter rivalry between the head of the SS, Heinrich Himmler, and Hitler's favorite architect and creator of the armaments miracle, Albert Speer? Did it go so far that the Reichsführer of the SS tried to poison Speer and get rid of him for good? Even in party circles, Himmler had a reputation for ruthless, icy consistency. No one dared quarrel with him seriously. On the 8th of February 1942, the Reich Minister for Armaments and Munitions, Fritz Todt, was killed when his plane crashed, soon after takeoff from Hitler's Wolf's Lair headquarters in East Prussia. With no time to lose in replacing Todt, Hitler appointed Albert Speer as the new Minister of Armaments and the new head of the Todt organization. Speer wasted no time in utilizing his newly received powers and began to reform the armaments industry, soon achieving an armaments miracle which saw massive gains in production numbers. The Führer was highly pleased with Speer, whose standing had risen to an all-time high. Because of Speer, the German war effort could be extended despite numerous large bombing raids by the Allies. In 1929, Heinrich Himmler had risen to the very top of the SS, Hitler's personal bodyguard, consisting of a mere 290 men. By 1944, he had transformed this small formation into an elite paramilitary and administrative branch of the Nazi Party, consisting of over 800,000 members, but Himmler's ambitions did not stop there. He had long been striving to set up a business firm which would be the sole property of the SS. His aspirations had been blocked by Hitler himself, with Speer confirming Hitler's belief this was not a good idea. This potentially may have earned the ire of Himmler in the process. But on January 18, 1944, the tide turned in Himmler's favor. Albert Speer was taken to a hospital, 2 years of constant stress and long hours, as well as severe pains in his knee, finally catching up with him. Speer opted to be admitted to the Red Cross's Hohenleichen Hospital, run by Dr. Gebhardt, an SS group leader and a well-known knee specialist in European sports. Unbeknownst to Speer, Dr. Gebhardt was one of Himmler's very few intimate friends. For 20 long days, Speer lay on his back with his leg immovable in a plaster cast. When he at last attempted to stand upright, he was struck with violent pains in his back and chest. The blood in my sputum suggested a pulmonary embolism, but Professor Gebhardt diagnosed muscular rheumatism and massaged my chest with bee venom, then prescribed sulfanilamide, quinine, and various painkillers. 2 days later, I suffered a second violent attack. My condition seemed critical, but Gebhardt continued to insist on muscular rheumatism. Deeply concerned, Speer sent his wife to see Hitler's personal physician, Dr. Karl Brandt, who immediately sent Dr. Friedrich Koch to the hospital to oversee Speer's recovery personally. Koch forbade Dr. Gebhardt from issuing any medical orders to Speer and took up a nearby room to keep an eye on him. For the next 3 days, Speer's condition remained critical. But with Dr. Koch's help, Speer began to recover somewhat. Soon, his friend Robert Frank relayed to him a sinister conversation he had one night with Dr. Koch. According to Koch, Dr. Gebhardt kept recommending an operation which, in Koch's view, would have been far too dangerous. When Koch had stated he saw no need for the operation and then outright forbade it, Gebhardt had backed out of the whole thing, alleging that he had only wanted to test Koch's opinion. Frank begged Speer to keep this information to himself, as Koch feared that if it leaked, he would disappear into a concentration camp, and Frank himself would have trouble with the Gestapo. Personally, Speer did not think he could go to Hitler with this information, as he believed the Führer would not tolerate any slandering of Himmler, his right-hand man. Not surprisingly, Speer's uneasiness during his stay at Hohenleichen Hospital began to increase. Despite his health being poor, he desperately wanted out. At the beginning of March, when a new hospital was secured, Dr. Gebhardt tried to dissuade Speer from leaving, using all sorts of medical reasons and doing all he could to block Speer's departure. Gebhardt only consented to Speer's leaving when a nearby hospital was bombed. Gebhardt thought that Speer had been the Allies' target. Overnight, Gebhardt's mind had been changed. On March 17, 1944, Speer checked out of Hohenleichen Hospital. Towards the end of the war, Speer asked Dr. Koch what had really happened at Hohenleichen Hospital. Koch confided that he and Gebhardt had an angry dispute over Speer's condition, and that during this argument, Gebhardt had remarked to him that it was Koch's business to not only be a physician, but a political physician. As far as Koch was concerned, Gebhardt had done everything in his power to keep Speer at that hospital as long as possible. Finally, free of Gebhardt, Speer traveled to Klesheim Palace in Salzburg, near Hitler's Burghof retreat, to continue his recovery. There, he received a telephone call from Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring to congratulate him on his birthday. When Speer used the occasion to give Göring a favorable report on his health, Göring responded in a cheerful tone, "What you're saying isn't true at all. Dr. Gebhardt has told me only yesterday that you're suffering from serious heart disease. Without any prospects of improvement, let me tell you. Maybe you don't know that just yet." Göring went on to praise Speer for his past achievements, whilst continuing to hint at Speer's impending demise. Even Hitler himself had been convinced of a similar verdict by Dr. Gebhardt. Visibly downcast, he told his associates, within earshot of Speer's wife, "Speer won't be recovering." That same day, Hitler presented Speer with a gigantic wreath of flowers, a gesture very uncharacteristic of the Führer. With Speer out of the way, Himmler finally managed to convince Hitler that a large-scale SS business enterprise would offer a number of advantages. The Führer finally consented. In June 1944, when Speer had fully recovered from his illness and reclaimed his position, Hitler asked him to assist the SS in its efforts to build up an economic empire extending from raw materials to manufacturing. Begrudgingly, Speer had to work alongside the man who had potentially tried to take him out. Had Himmler seen an opportunity to finally get rid of the main opponent of the SS business empire he had sought for the longest time? Did he seek to eliminate the man praised for bringing about an armaments miracle when, in Himmler's mind, it was the SS who should be in charge of the lion's share of armaments production? According to Speer, Martin Bormann himself confirmed there had been a plot to bring him down. In Obersalzberg, on one of the many group walks from Hitler's Berghof to the nearby tea house, Bormann had informed Speer, with excessive cordiality, that he had not taken any part in the grand intrigue against him. Whether Himmler had sought to take Speer out completely or merely incapacitate him for longer than he otherwise would have been, Speer's absence played into the Reichsführer's favor. The opportunity was made to order. The slightest complication of my illness would have knocked me off. There would have been no grounds for any suspicion.